Good morning, everybody. I think I waited too long to come to UCC because when I listened to Chanel a while ago, I am so impressed. And if that is the quality of students that you have here at this university, I think you all have a very long way to go when it comes to technology and whatever area of study you are pursuing. I'm going to take this jacket off so we can get down to real work. I see my friend up there who was wearing one also took it off. So we'll get down to brass tacks. So before I start, I would like you to put your hands together and give this lady a rousing round of applause. I felt like I was listening to an ICANN staff member telling me about the internet. I mean, I can tell you, I've already taken a picture of that slide that you had up there with DAR and sent it to all of my colleagues on the Latin American Caribbean team, because the first time I had to give a DAR presentation, I stumbled. I didn't know what DAR was, I couldn't explain it. And here it is, a student at your university presenting DAR like she owns it. And this is what we need more of in the ICANN multi-stakeholder community. Before I leave on Thursday, I want to sit with you and let's make a plan for what you're going to do when you go to Cancun, Mexico. And maybe I can start by talking about that. Chanel applied for something called the Next Gen program, which is a program designed specifically to help university students take a soft landing into the ICANN environment. The ICANN environment can be a very complex place. And you know, the old heads, they try to intimidate you. When they see somebody new coming in, they want to make you afraid, like you don't belong. The first time I walked into an ICANN meeting, I heard somebody say, and I thought I was this IT big shot, right? Mr. Microsoft, know all about networking and so on. When I walked into the room, I heard somebody say, the CCNSO is considering a PDP on IDNs, and they want to discuss it with the GAC and the ESAC. Now, honestly, I thought they were speaking some foreign language. You know, when you go to some of these conferences, by the door, there are these headsets that you put on and you can get translated from French, Spanish, and all these languages. I went back to the door and I put on a pair of these headsets because it sounded like they were speaking a foreign language. And as I go through my presentation, there will be some acronyms. So it may at first sound like a foreign language. Chanel, when you go to Cancun, they're going to throw those acronyms at you. Don't worry about it. It's just easier to say PDP than to say policy development process 10 times, okay? So after a while, once you start understanding what all these acronyms mean, you find that ICANN is a pretty interesting place. And there is a place for each one of you to fit into ICANN, because at ICANN, we have what is referred to as a multi-stakeholder community, where all of the different stakeholders have their place in the ICANN system. So I'm going to go a little bit quickly here with this presentation today, because I really want to hear from you. When the Associate Vice President asked a question this morning, this lady there in the purple had her hand up like she wanted to answer every question. So I'm looking forward to hearing your voice in response to some of the questions that I have and some of you. How many of you are going to be focusing on information technology? By a show of hands, just let me see how many hands, information technology. Okay, a few of you. How many of you are business students? Business or accounting or something besides information technology? Great. And I think you told me that you were in marketing, is it? Yeah, good. So in all of that introduction that was read about me, I just want to leave you with one point. I started in IT. And as I started going up through the ranks in my company, my managing director said to me, Albert, you know what? You are good at IT, but if you want to go far in business, you need to learn accounts. I think there was somebody here who told me that they were majoring in accounts. The trick in this thing is not only to study a single area, but to study at least one or two areas. So in St. Lucia, they used to call me Mr. Microsoft. You know, he knows everything about Microsoft. He brought the internet to St. Lucia. But in addition to that, I went back to school, night classes, and I learned accounts. So at the end, you had this IT guy who also knew accounts. And that is what really propelled me when I went into companies to do information security audits and information technology audits, because most of the time there is an accounting aspect to that. And the thing about it is, you know, the staff at companies, banks, and financial institutions, they try to pull the wool over your eye, either on the accounting and financial side or on the IT side. But they didn't like me, because when I walked into those companies, I knew about accounts and I also knew about IT. So don't keep all of your eggs in one basket. Try to put one or two of the specialities together. Maybe a little bit of marketing, a little bit of IT, a little bit of accounts, a little bit of IT. This lady is going all the way through with her IT. So you can focus on that, but learn a little bit more about the other disciplines. Very important. So what we are going to do today is just talk a little bit more. Chanel has made my job really easy, I have to tell you, because she already started introducing you to what ICANN is all about. She spoke about these juicy things that I'll tell you about. I don't know what she was talking about, but hopefully one of these 4 items might catch your interest. The new gTLD program, auction proceeds, universal acceptance, and DNSSEC. Maybe you might find something in there that interests you. And then later on, we'll just talk quickly about ICANN's multi-stakeholder model, how policy is developed, and how you can actually get involved like Chanel is going to be. So first of all, who can tell me, you see what I mean? Her hand is already going up. I haven't even asked the question yet. I don't know, do you watch Family Feud with Steve Harvey? When they hit the button before you hear the question, her hand started going up. Who can tell me what ICANN really is? And I know your hand is going to go up. What can you tell me about ICANN? Shout it out. Oh, he's bringing you a microphone, great.
Okay, so ICANN is the International Corporation of Assigned Names and Numbers.
Internet.
The Internet Corporation, sorry.
Mhm.
And it deals mainly in identifiers. So for one computer to speak to another computer across the internet, it needs to have an address. These addresses are called...
I can leave now, right?
No.
Continue.
These addresses are called identifiers, and each one has to be unique for, you know, easy, stable, secured, unified connections. ICANN specializes in making sure that each computer has an identifier. It's not being mixed up with other ones for wrong communications and security issues.
Did you see my slides before this morning?
No, to tell you the truth, last semester we had to do a presentation on what ICANN is, what their role is, and how ICANN could benefit Jamaica. So I am drawing on that information and also from Chanel's presentation.
Excellent. Okay, you better stop. You better stop, because if you continue, I'll have nothing left to do. Are all of the students in the university that bright?
I'm not sure.
Listen, I want to see many more of you at ICANN. If you can't go physically, if you don't get accepted in the Next Gen program, if you don't get accepted in the fellowship program, you can follow the meetings virtually. Please participate, because we need people like you with that kind of energy, with that kind of interest in learning about the organization, so that you can get in Jamaica the type of internet that you want for your businesses and for your social interaction. Very, very, very good answer. And honestly, I could leave the room now and just leave you to give the rest of my presentation. But since I came all the way to Jamaica, let me continue. So you've already heard it. The acronym stands for the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, 2 N's, one for numbers, one for names. And you already heard a little bit from Chanel about the DNS. You'll help me use that term a lot, the DNS, the domain name system. So that's what those 2 acronyms are for. And what is your name? I didn't get your name. Kalia, okay. As Kalia already told you, since apparently she saw my slides before I came here, every device that's connected to the internet needs a unique identifier, an IP address. So I'm seeing cell phones, I'm seeing security cameras, I'm seeing all sorts of devices. Every single one needs a unique identifier. This is like a postal address. It allows messages to get to the machine that you actually want the message to go to. But the thing about IP addresses, and I have a question for Kayla. Let's see if I can stump her panel. There are two types of IP addresses. Do you know what they're called? Oh, I finally stumped her panel. Anybody else knows the two types of IP addresses? I can't hear. Maybe you'll have to speak a little bit. You're thinking static and dynamic. Close. Closer would have been IPv4 and IPv6, IP version 4. Yeah, she wanted to say that. So you see, she knew it. Have you ever seen numbers like 192.168.something when you're configuring your routers? I'm seeing heads nodding. That is an IP address. And that particular format, private and public as well, those are two types. That's correct. So that type of IP address, the one that starts 192.168.something, that is an IPv4 address. That was the first type of IP addresses that were actually developed. And believe it or not, those addresses ran out. So I don't know if you can see it clearly on this slide, but there's a number that starts with FFD84:69E1:1CE7:25. That is actually an IP address in the new format, IP version 6. And there are many more IP addresses. There are actually 340 undecillion IP address. Can anybody tell me how many zeros in an undecillion? How many zeros in 1,000? 3 zeros. How many zeros in a million? 6. So you keep going from million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion, sextillion, nonillion, octillion, all the way up to when you get to 10 and 340 undecillion. It's a lot of IP addresses. But the thing about it is the human being cannot remember these long numbers in hexadecimal. So instead of using the IP addresses, we use domain names, facebook.com, microsoft.com, because it's easier for us to remember microsoft.com or facebook.com than to remember an IPv6 address. So what you have is this system called the domain name system that translates the domain names into IP addresses. The servers all have IP addresses. And when you try to get to your bank, for example, you actually have to go to a server, but you might remember scotiabank.jm, but you may not actually remember the IP address for the Scotiabank server. So that is where the DNS comes in doing that translation from domain names into IP addresses. So ICANN as an organization pretty much manages the internet's unique system of identifiers, the names and the numbers, but we don't do it alone. We do it in collaboration with many of our partners. And we have two types of partners. We have technical partners like the Internet Engineering Task Force, the domain name system operators, root server operators, because when you type something like facebook.com, that goes to a root server, and the root server starts that translation process of translating into the actual server that has the information on it. And when ICANN gives out IP addresses, it actually gives them out to some of these organizations like the Latin American Caribbean Network Information Center, the American Registry for Internet Numbers. And these are some of the technical partners ICANN works with. And we also work with other partners like the Internet Society, the Internet Governance Forum, and so on. And all of this basically to say that many entities are necessary to keep the internet working. It's not only ICANN, but it's several of ICANN's partners as well as many other technical partners. Within ICANN, there is a division known as the IANA. There's another acronym, IANA, and that's where all of the IP addresses are housed. And at the IANA, we distribute those IP addresses globally through one of the regional internet registries, ARIN, LACNIC, AFRINIC, RIPE, APNIC. Each one of those registries covers a particular part of the globe. ARIN covers North America and Canada and parts of the Caribbean. including Jamaica. LACNIC covers Latin America and other parts of the Caribbean, like Belize and Trinidad and Tobago. So these regional internet registries get the numbers. In turn, they pass those numbers on to your internet service providers. They just sell and flow and so on. And then finally, you as end users with your laptops, with your cell phones, you would then get an IP address from your ISP. Now, the most important thing to understand about ICANN is that ICANN is not only an organization. ICANN is the not-for-profit organization that manages the internet's unique system of identifiers, but there's something called an ICANN ecosystem that has three parts. The most important part of the ICANN ecosystem is you, what we refer to as the stakeholders, people who rely on the internet for their business, for their marketing, for their communication, and so on. So in the ICANN community, you have representatives of end users, of academia, of the business sector, of government, and these are the individuals who actually develop policy for using the internet. And then you have an ICANN board of directors. We heard that Chanel is very interested in joining the ICANN board of directors. The ICANN board of directors also is comprised of people coming from the community, but it's at a higher level where it takes the final decision on the types of policies that you have in your country for the internet. And then finally, you have the ICANN organization, where you have ICANN staff members like myself, who have technical functions, who have engagement functions, who actually work with you to facilitate meetings on policy and to manage the actual internet. So what we are going to do now is just quickly go through 4 different areas. And I want you to tell me afterwards, which one seemed to pique your interest. The first one we'll talk about is the new gTLD program. What is a gTLD? And Chanel, it's okay, you can answer as well. But yeah. Anybody else besides Chanel wants to tell me what a gTLD is? I see a hand starting to go up at the back there. You brave enough to answer? Give them the mic at the back there. Let's hear what they have to say. No, you shaking your head? Yeah. I want to find out what a gTLD is. gTLD, we're trying to find out what a gTLD is. I think there's something wrong with that microphone. So maybe if you shout it out. Go ahead, shout it out. I know you have a strong. Go ahead, go ahead. Generic top-level domains. Give me an example of 2 generic top-level domains.
Give
me 2 examples of generic top-level domains. At the back?
.com and .gov.
.com and .gov. So generic top-level domains are domains like .com, like .gov, like .edu, .org, and so on, which come at the end of your domain names. When you go into a browser, you type a domain name, facebook.com, scotiabank.something, or education.gov. And all of those was some of the domain names which existed originally, .com, .org, .edu, and so on. What happened? You, the community, decided that, hey, those top-level domain names are boring. All we have is .com, .org. What does .org even mean? And at a community level, you participated in discussions and decided we want something more competitive, we wanted more innovation, we wanted more choice. So as a result of discussions which took place within the ICANN multi-stakeholder community, we have over 1,200 more top-level domain names which are generic. So this program was community-driven, and it has enabled the biggest expansion in top-level domain names since the internet actually started. The new gTLD program is managed by ICANN, and there actually, as I mentioned, 1,200 new domain names that were developed. And this is an interesting slide. If you look carefully at it, you will see some of those generic top-level domain names that have now been added to .com, .org, and so on. .sport, .media, .echo, .school, .app, .music, .New York. All of those are live internet generic top-level domain names that are available to you right now. Why don't we have a .rum or .roti or .fet? You know, all of these would make the internet more interesting, .bank and so on. So this is a very tangible effect of input that has come from you as members of the multi-stakeholder community. So there's been more innovation, there's been a global restructuring, because the other thing that happened with the expansion of the top-level domain names is we have something called internationalized top-level domain names. So people who use Arabic characters or Chinese characters or Russian characters even can have those characters in a website name and also in an email address. That is what internationalized domain names are all about. And ICANN works with the community to ensure that we have security and stability. That was point number one, the generic top-level domain names. Point number two that we want to look at is auction proceeds. Now, when the TLDs were expanded, there was a situation sometimes where there was contention. I only remember your first name, so I'm going to call you Otis. I can do that because I'm faculty too, I'm not a student. You have to, what's your last name? Mr. Osborne is what you need to call him. I can call him Otis. So the new gTLDs were being developed. It was possible for two people to want the same top-level domain. For example, I could have wanted something like .bmw, and Otis could have also wanted .bmw. So what you have is two people wanting the same thing. You have contention. And what happened with these generic top-level domain names is the system of last resort was actually the auction. What ICANN would do is they would take Otis and take Mr. Daniels and put the two of them in a room and let them fight it out. And if Otis came out, then he'd get the domain. But then, you know, if that didn't work, you needed to have another system of deciding who got to own the top-level domain. So you had these auctions. And believe it or not, those auctions raised over 230 million US dollars, which is sitting in a bank account somewhere. And that bank account is being managed by ICANN. You see the figure right here, 233,455,563 United States dollars. Those funds are sitting somewhere. Guess who will decide how that money is used? Take a guess. And I want to hear from this side of the room. I've seen a lot of hands from this side. Guess who will decide how this money is used? Somebody from this side of the room. Who? The stakeholders. And who are the stakeholders?
Community.
The community. Oh, another bright one. Oh my goodness. Is everybody bright in this room? Anyway, so that is it. The stakeholders will decide how that money is spent. Would you like some of that money to be spent on projects in Jamaica? Then go to an ICANN meeting. When Chanel is going to Cancun, give her a brief. Tell her, look, Chanel, we know you got selected for the Next Gen program, but when you go to that ICANN meeting, find yourself in the GNSO, find yourself in the CCNSO, find yourself in the GAC, and tell them about Jamaica. Tell them where to find Jamaica. Tell them how good the food in Jamaica is, and tell them why they should use some of that 230 million US dollars for projects in Jamaica and the wider Caribbean. That is why I'm here, to inspire you and encourage you to start participating and let the outside world know why, you know, they should do things in Jamaica. You can find more information on generic top-level domain names by going to newgtlds.icann.org. And what is happening right now, and you will see this when you go to Cancun, is that the community in ICANN is now discussing how those funds should be used. The community has come up with something called the ICANN Grant Program. So they have already started having these ideas for how those funds should be used. And what's going to happen at the meeting in Cancun, and at the next one in Hamburg, and at the next one in San Juan, and what happened at the last meeting in Kuala Lumpur. And all of you will have the opportunity, if you wanted, to go to these places. There are discussions, and the program is being expanded and developed. So if you don't participate, your input will not form a part of what that program is and how it actually works. Are you interested yet in ICANN? Go ahead, question. Okay, find yourself at the ICANN meeting. I'm not going to answer that question here. Follow the ICANN meeting virtually. Go looking for the sessions on the ICANN grant program. Give this lady here, Chanel, a brief tell her, look, when you go to Cancun, go and join yourself all over the place. I want you to go and find out about the grant program and come back and tell me. This is exactly what we need. I can't do it for you. I can beat the horse, but the horse eventually has to run on its own. So I am just whetting your appetite. I'm giving you websites. I'm telling you about the ICANN meeting. You can follow that ICANN meeting virtually by just going to a website. So yes, there'll be a lot of discussions about the grant program at the next ICANN meeting, okay? So those are the auction proceeds. The next thing we'll talk about quickly is universal acceptance. Now this slide shows it. Our original generic top-level domains.com, .edu, .org, .net, .asia, .travel, and then you had some country code top-level domains. What is the country code top-level domain name for Jamaica? What is the country code top-level domain name for Jamaica? I'm deliberately ignoring you. .jm, that's correct. And there are many top-level country code domain names. .uk for the United Kingdom, JM for Jamaica, BB Barbados, .fr for France, and so on. These were the original top-level domains that you had from about 2009. After 2009, country codes decided to start using foreign language characters, as you see here. There's some examples of some Chinese characters and some Russian characters and some other characters. After 2013, then you had this explosion of the use of generic top-level domain names, .bank, .bar, .global, .sky, .rio, plus the internationalized domain names, Chinese, Russian, Arabic, and so on. So you find that a lot more people have been using the internet in their own languages. You have websites in foreign language characters, internationalized domain names. You have websites in longer domain names. It was first only 3 characters, .com, .org, and so on. Now you have .example and so on. Email addresses are now in foreign language characters. So this is the new internet. But the problem is that these domain names and email addresses are not accepted on all systems. My friend at the back there who looks like a programmer may have developed a system to take email addresses, maybe for registering at a hotel, but he may not have considered somebody trying to register with a Chinese character email address. So what you find is that Chinese character email addresses work on the internet. ICANN has done its job, but when you try to put it in my friend's system and his website, it comes up and it gives you an error message saying this is not a valid email address. There's a similar problem for websites. See this website here with Japanese characters. This works on the internet, but when you try to put it through your browser, through your system, it may not work and it may give you an error message. This is also a valid website address, domain name, .organic, and it works properly. It should give you a website, but when you try to put it in through certain systems, it may not work. And that is the problem. The problem is that all of these new domain names and new email addresses are not working on certain systems. So if you are the IT manager at a hotel, or if you're trying to export your products, your music, your food to China, to India, to other places in the world that use email address with foreign language characters, and somebody builds a website for you, if that website is not universal acceptance ready, then you're going to lose customers. You will not be making as much money as you could make. So this is a big problem. And to understand how big it is, when IDNs, internationalized domain names, were introduced, it brought on millions of new users, which drove approximately 3.6 billion US dollars on the, of business on the internet. So all of these people who are now in China using domain names with Chinese addresses, now using Chinese email addresses. Those new ones who have started using, because they can now use, the guys in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, who are using those special characters. They can use the internet in their language. They want to come and stay, they want to come and experience Jamaica. They want to put in their email address. If your system cannot accept their email address, then you are not having access to this money. And in addition to those new ones who came on board, there will be new users coming on the internet because internationalized domain names are available. Another $6.2 billion worth of business. So in total, there's a $9.2 billion US business opportunity on the internet if your system is universal acceptance ready. You interested yet? You interested in any of this money? Then come to ICANN, find out about the Universal Acceptance Program, and make sure that the systems that you develop for your clients once you graduate from UCC are universal acceptance ready. This whole concept of universal acceptance is so important that the big companies like Microsoft, Google, Apple, and so on are all coming together to try and solve this problem. And you see the website UASG, the Universal Acceptance Steering Group.tech, is a place that you can go to find out more about universal acceptance. And then quickly, we'll just talk a little bit about DNSSEC. In very simple terms, DNSSEC is one of ICANN's programs that will mitigate what we call man-in-the-middle attack. Is anybody here a hacker? Put up your hand, let me see. Somebody was brave enough to put up their hand. I'm seeing you afterwards, and I'll introduce you to some of my police friends, okay? So we all know oh, you're pointing on him. Dude, she exposed you, all right? You didn't see it, but she had her hand pointing down at you. So there's another one. This is what hackers do. You want to go to your bank account to see how much money you have. Now, we all know Otis there, my friend. Last name again? Osborne. Otis there, when he has millions of dollars in his bank account. So he likes to go to his online banking to see how much, which bank do you bank with? Many, see, I only have one little stupid bank account and it doesn't have any money in it. But when he goes to his bank account, he puts in the domain name for his bank because he wants to log in and see all of these millions that he has. Now, what my friend at the back there will do is when he types in the domain name for his bank, my friend will set up a website that looks just like his bank's website. And when he types in the name of his bank.com or .jm, what will happen is my friend in that translation process on the DNS will send a fake bank website. Otis, you know, being the millionaire that he is, will not worry too much about it. He's just going to type in his username and his password. And what will happen is that the website is going to give an error message. It says, error, you typed the wrong username and password. But what has happened is that the username and password has been collected because when he typed his bank's website, it went to the hacker's website. So he, without knowing it, typed his username and password into the hacker's website. So now the hacker has his login information. When he goes to check tomorrow, his bank account is going to look like mine, 0, because the hacker would have gotten all of the funds out of the bank account. Now, this can take place because of something called a man-in-the-middle attack. The hacker is able to intercept that request for the IP address when he types in his bank website and give a fake IP address that points to the wrong place. And then afterwards, he types in all of his data. And has anybody heard about caching? Caches where you store information? Yeah. So what happens is that not only will Otis get caught, but Otis will get caught, Natalie will get caught, and everybody else who has loads of money who goes to that website afterwards, thousands of them who go to that bank afterwards will all get caught. So the two hackers now will have all these usernames and all these passwords, and they have a field day clearing out everybody's account. Oh, you have a lot of money in your account, you give it to him so he can get it out. I'll come back to your question in a second. So what has happened in ICANN is we've come up with this technology called DNSSEC. And basically what it is encryption and authentication. So when Mr. Osborne types in the website for his bank, what happens is when that IP address comes back, there's some authentication that's run to ensure that this is an authentic piece of information that is coming to you about a server. So ICANN signs the top level domain name. Your website developer has to sign his domain name. Your ISP has to make sure that they are running DNSSEC authentication traffic, and all of that has to work. And you need to understand all of that by participating in ICANN. The end result is you make online transactions more secure by using this technology, which has been developed in the ICANN community. We had a question from the back. Can you give her a microphone? Oh, no, I answered it. Is it better to use an application or to go to a website? The problem exists with both, because what happens behind the application is the same thing essentially that happens in a website. The application just makes it easier. So instead of typing facebook.com or instagram.com, when you open up the app, it will go to that same website for you and do the DNS translation from website name to IP address in the same way as if you went directly. But if the website is using DNSSEC, and if your ISPs have been implementing DNSSEC, then the transaction becomes safer. So the whole idea is come to ICANN, learn about DNSSEC, learn about how it should be deployed. You don't even need to understand it. You simply go to your ISP and you ask them, have you deployed DNSSEC? You go to your bank and you ask them, are you using DNSSEC on your websites? And typically when I speak to groups like yours, I talk to the ISPs first. I tell them, look, I'm talking to 100 people today. I'm going to send them to ask you if you have deployed DNSSEC. So you better have an answer for them. I don't know what that answer is from Flow and from Digicel, but go ask them. Go ask your bank. Have you heard about DNSSEC? Is it deployed? When I log into my online bank account, is DNSSEC making it more safe? So everybody benefits, the end user in particular benefits from DNSSEC. So those are just 4 of the things that happen at ICANN. I'm not going to spend a long time on the rest of these slides because I'm sure we have gone pretty far close to the end of the time. But ICANN is responsible and focuses on ensuring that we have a stable and secure operation of the Internet's unique system of identifiers. These are our values. We look for stability, security, resilience, and openness. Some people have Apple phones, some people have Android phones. There are many different brands. There are many different brands of computers. Regardless of what type of computer you use, it should work on the internet. You may design a brand new phone and you want to make sure that it works on the internet. So what do? You go to ICANN and you make sure that when they're talking about the technologies that you tell them, hey, I'm coming out with a JM007. That's the name of the brand of the phone that he's going to invent in a couple of years' time. So you go to ICANN and you tell them that this thing is coming out. You want to make sure that the technology works with the internet. It must be open and interoperable. One of the big differences between what happens at ICANN and what happens in other places is that we work in a bottom-up approach. The tail wags the dog. You, the stakeholders, are the ones that decide what is important. If you want something on the internet for your country, for your universities, you can go to ICANN and tell them, I have a problem with the internet. And this is my problem. Here is my data. This is the research that I've done. And you can actually make changes in policy from the ground up. It's not that you have some big person, Mr. Daniels or somebody else at ICANN, or Natalie when she decides to change jobs working at ICANN, actually saying that this is how the internet should be. You decide how the internet should be. If there's something you don't like on the internet, or if there's something you would like to see, you go to an ICANN meeting and you can get it actually to be implemented. ICANN is present all over the world. I serve the Caribbean and I am available to you. I gave my email address at the beginning. So anything you would like to know, you can ask me about it, but we have offices all over the world and we operate a multi-stakeholder model, which is volunteer-based. Everyone in the ICANN multi-stakeholder community is actually a volunteer. So when Ms. Rose attended an ICANN meeting, she was a volunteer at the time. I don't think she worked at UCC yet. When, remind me of the name, Chanel, goes to the ICANN meeting in Cancun, she is a volunteer at that point. She can decide that she's going to sit on a committee or sit on a working group or take a leadership position. But at that point, she's still a volunteer. So you have volunteers from many different communities in the ICANN multi-stakeholder grouping. And some of them make policy in the supporting organizations and others give the board advice. And they come from many different backgrounds. I know in here you have different specializations with different interests. You may eventually go into business, into governance, into engineering, and so on, academia. So you don't have to be an IT student to be interested in ICANN. I know we have the accountants and marketing. There are a lot of lawyers who find themselves at ICANN because there are a lot of, what's the term now? I just had a brain freeze. Intellectual property. There's a lot of intellectual property discussion going on. I decided that I want to have Coca-Cola.com, all right, because, you know, I make something in my backyard that I call Coca-Cola, all right? Should I be allowed to have the Coca-Cola domain? That's a big legal issue. It's discussed actually in ICANN. So what happens in ICANN is policy is developed, it's refined, and it results in the kind of internet that we eventually have. And they are representatives of all of the groups. They are representatives of the numbers community, IP addresses. They are representatives of the top level domain names. They are representatives of the generic domain names. And in addition, you have representatives of end users. We call them the at-large. You have representatives of governments. We call them the GAC, Governmental Advisory Committee. And then you have your techies, the ones interested in the security of the internet, and those interested in root servers. So all of these come together from the different regions and in the different parts of ICANN. I think somebody mentioned registries and registrars, non-commercial, not-for-profit. All of these people come together within ICANN and they decide on what kind of internet we actually end up with. And you have this process, you know, where the policy is identified, it's developed, it's put out for public comment, and eventually it gets to the board for final decision. So if you answer yes to any of these questions, you should pay attention to what's happening in ICANN. And I think the slides will be available. And there are many ways to participate in ICANN. These three are the ones that I wanted to talk about. The Next Gen program is for university students age 18 to 30. And specifically when the ICANN meeting is in our region, we have some spaces reserved for persons from the region. So this is why Chanel was able to get into the Next Gen program. The next meeting is going to be in our region, Latin America and the Caribbean, Cancun. So she got priority in terms of her application, very competitive. And I really want to congratulate Chanel because it's a global program and she was able to rise to the top and she got selected. There's another program for anybody who doesn't necessarily have to be a university student. That's a fellowship program. Once you're over the age of 21, once you're 21 or older, I think when she applied, she may have been 21, Miss Rose, but Miss Rose was actually a fellow, an ICANN fellow. She's been to a few ICANN meetings because you know you don't ask ladies their age, right? So, and what happens is ICANN actually pays for your airfare, pays for your accommodation, and gives you a small stipend to attend. We want you at ICANN meetings. That's why we are doing all of this to try to get you to go to these meetings. And what happens is Next Gen and fellows actually have risen to the highest levels in the ICANN community. Leon Felipe Sanchez actually was a fellow. He eventually became a board member. I was one of the first fellows. Now I work for ICANN. So there is a bright path ahead of you once you go through the fellowship program on Next Gen. This is one of the last slides. I think I just have two more. So the next ICANN meeting takes place in Cancun. The one after that and at this meeting in Cancun, you can attend, even though you're not going face to face. You can log on to the ICANN website, register for the meeting, and you can follow the sessions. The sessions are going to be in a time zone that's close to us. When the meeting was in Kuala Lumpur or Singapore or so on, you had to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. But this one is one you should take advantage of because it's in your time zone. The one after that, ICANN 77, is going to be in Washington, DC, and then Hamburg, and then we go to Puerto Rico, and it keeps rotating. We will pay for you if you get selected as a fellow to go to those meetings. Ask Ms. Rose about that because she has been. And you need to keep a look at these dates, March 1st and March 31st. Those are the dates for the opening of the application process for the ICANN Fellowship. So don't let March 31st pass without you applying to go to the meeting in Hamburg. If you are successful, we will fly you there, we will pay for you. You can attend. I see Mr. Otis, Mr. Osman smiling because he's thinking about applying. So you're in competition with your faculty, right? So I think I tried to go a little bit fast, but I'll stop here, take note of the email address, but I just wanted to give you a taste for what ICANN is and some of the points that may be of interest to you. I don't know how much time your lecturers are going to give me for questions, but I will be happy to take a few questions if we have a few minutes, if there are any. So at this point, I would stop and I thank you for being so attentive. I thank you for being so bright. And maybe we can take one or two questions, can we? Yeah. We can take one or two questions. So don't all put your hands up at the same time. Questions, over to you.
All right. We are asking the online team, persons who are online, if they have any questions, to put it in the chat. Make sure you put that question tag first and then write your question.
Okay, so while we're waiting for the questions from outside, I saw at least one hand and you have to put your hand up so I can see that you're interested. Let's give her a microphone. She's going to be the next ICANN fellow or next gen. I know that for sure. Make sure you tell me when you apply so I can put in a good word and say that you participated when I came to Jamaica. And it's okay, faculty can ask questions too. The lecturers can ask even, are you with the media? No? But you're allowed to ask questions as well, because I know marketing people and promotional people are very interested. So let's say that question.
When you were younger, did you believe that you would be in information technology? So, you know, when we are at a certain age, we start thinking, okay, this is what I want for my life. So it was always IT for you?
Okay, that's now you're taking me to a different zone. All right. First you talk about when I was younger. I was always this age, okay? I was never younger. But I started off purely by accident. I started off only with enthusiasm. A friend of mine just before summer vacation said to me, I'm going to go and learn about this thing called computers. We're going to give summer classes and teach people how to use computers. Would you like to come? That's how it started. I didn't know anything about computers. So I said, I'll come with you. And I went with him. And then shortly after that, I use first names, Neil, that, you know, there was a computer called the Sinclair ZX81 and another one called the Commodore 64. And these were the first computers that you could buy and plug into your TV screen. And then you would teach yourself how to program in BASIC. That's how I started. And at that time, I had no idea of where this was going. But I did accounts, I did some security, I did disaster recovery, I did IT audit, I did a whole bunch of things. And then in the end, I realized, but hey, all of these different skills that I'm getting actually seem to come together nicely if I were to go into the ICANN environment. And that is why I made the point that yes, you may like a particular discipline, you may like marketing, you know, maybe you feel, okay, I'm not good at math, so I'm going to do marketing and I won't get into this IT thing. But even though you focus on marketing and you become the best marketer, learn about a little, you know, when you go to university, the first year of university, nobody likes it because the lecturers make you do all of these courses that you're not interested in. They make you do music and singing and dance and literature and all these things that you really are interested in. You want to learn how to program. You want to learn security, and they have you sit down and learn about Macbeth and Shakespeare and all this kind of foolishness. I didn't like history. I got licks in school for running away from history class, but those things are important. Go in the class. You may get bored after the halfway point, but at least get a sense of what it is. And in answer to your question, no, I had no idea where this was going, but it just sort of evolved. So right now, you may not feel that there is an opportunity for you in ICANN, but it may just end up that way. So I see maybe an online question here, and then we have a hand at the back.
All right, so I have 3 questions. I have the first one from Brittany. Does the IP address differ on devices, or is it one address per person?
Okay, that's a very good question. I think my friend at the back may know the answer to this because he was speaking about static addresses and IP addresses. Unique identifiers. Remember I told you at the beginning that the first set of IP addresses ran out? You remember that? Remember I told you that? So this is what your ISPs did. They had a fixed set of IP addresses. And then when they started running out, you know, ISPs, they want to continue. This has been broadcast, right? The ISPs want to continue making money. So they had to find a way to get one IP address to work for hundreds and thousands of people. So they set up this system where with one IP address, they could get you to use it on your computer and everybody to use it on their computer. But see the problem, if, oh, the hackers left, oh no, there's still one hacker left. If they're all of you in the room and you all have the IP address and one of you, this lady here, mark her face well, and one of you is a hacker, and then Chanel on her system decides to block that IP address that she's hacking from, since everybody is sharing that IP address, then all of you are going to get cut off from the internet. And this is why IPv version 6 is so important, because in answer to the question, in IP version 6, everybody and their dog and their plants can have their own unique IP address. As it stands right now, there are some cases where your ISP is using technologies to have some of you sharing the same IP address. So yes and no is the answer to that question.
All right, so the second question from Vanessa is from Vanessa. How can a person own a domain name?
Okay, so I think you heard the term registrars earlier this morning from this lady who clearly has a future at ICANN, Chanel. She spoke about registrars like GoDaddy and so on. When you go to these companies, they provide a comprehensive service, but one of the things that they do is they give you a top-level domain name. So you can buy chanel.com, for example, from GoDaddy, and you don't really buy it. You sort of lease it on an annual basis. You pay maybe 10, 15 US dollars a year for it. So if you wanted to get a domain name, you get it from a registry or a registrar. If you want an IP address and you're big enough, if you are a university or a large corporation or a government, you can get it directly from the regional internet registries. Remember, I had that slide showing what the regional internet registries were. So you can actually get IP addresses directly from regional internet registries, or you can get it from your ISP. Right, so this was a slide here. And the regional internet registry that covers Jamaica is ARI, A-R-I.
All right, and the last question is from Shamar. Can a non-accredited business sell domain names? Also, are there penalties for these non-accredited businesses?
Okay, so when it comes to generic top-level domain names, and remember we spoke about the difference between the generics and the country code, .com, .org, and so on. The people managing those and the registrars who are selling them are what we refer to as accredited registrars. They have contracts with ICANN. And in those contracts, I think you talk about contractual compliance. In those contracts, it's very clearly laid out, you know, what the rules are for selling domain names. So the thing about it is it's very, very, very strict for generics, but you also have country code top-level domain names. I bet you if you look for otis.com that you're not going to find it. But if you look for otis.jm, you may find it, because at the country code level, you know, typically things are a little bit different. Now, country code domain name operators do not necessarily have contracts with ICANN. So it's really the local community that determines what the policies are. So what can happen is for .jm, the local registrar can perhaps say, well, I will allow you to sell .jm domain names, or I will allow you to sell .jm domain names, and that'll be within the local policies. So if you decide locally in Jamaica that you want to have restrictions and you want to have penalties for different things, you can have that. At the top level, they have contracts with ICANN, and yes, there are penalties. When it comes to the top level domain name, ICANN tries to stay out of your business. Okay, ICANN will not tell Jamaica what to do with its .jm. But if the person managing .jm starts doing things that could negatively affect the rest of the internet, or if they realize, well, the person managing .jm is only friends with Niles, and only Niles and his buddy are getting domain names below .jm, then ICANN is going to step in and bring a correction to that situation. But more or less, it's up to the local community. So let me just go to the back.
Yes, I was just saying that we take one last question from the audience in here, and then we kind of wrap up.
Okay.
Since we're out of
Maybe
time.
somebody can bring the microphone to our friend in the red polo at the back.
Good afternoon. Can you return to the GL? Right. No, a man-in-the-middle attack uses specific type of names, similar to a bank name as you use, right? So how is it? What kind of information would you give us to say that that bank or that local bank or that something else is a legitimate site, because we are used to .com, .org, .jm. So how would that work now? Because a man-in-the-middle attack uses things like those, right, to, as you say, attack, say, Otis bank account.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the first thing that you can actually do is you can get a full listing of all of the accredited top-level domain names. Okay, I think I had a slide with it, newgtlds.icann.org. I mean, and you can, if you don't remember the domain name, you can figure it out. New gTLDs, newgtlds.icann.org. And you can go to that website now. When you go to that website, you will see the full list of all 1,200 new top-level domain names that have been brought into the internet. So that's the first thing. You can get that empirical listing of names. Additionally, you can check a website that you're going to see whether they have deployed DNSSEC. And there are ways that you could do it. You can write code into the browser, or in some of the browsers, you can put on attachments that will tell you whether or not a particular website is using DNSSEC. Now, DNSSEC, we simply know, is that technology that makes the transactions safer. It uses encryption, it uses authentication. And what will happen is that when you go to that website, you will be able to tell whether or not the certificate has been signed by ICANN at the root, and whether each person in the chain, whether each link in the chain is doing the right thing, whether the ISPs, Digicel, and Flow did their authentication at each stage of the game. You will be able to tell whether or not DNSSEC has been properly deployed. So you're very right to be concerned that the websites that you're going to, even with all of these new things, you know, a guy might decide to come up with .shed, you know, saying he's building sheds or brooms or whatever. You want to be sure that it's a legitimate website. So deploy DNSSEC, make sure that he has deployed DNSSEC. It's not difficult. You can learn how to do it by attending and participating in ICANN. And once you understand what's going on in the community, then you're better able to deal. And that's just one of the issues. There are over 90 issues like that that we talk about within the ICANN community. You could spend loads of time in there, but you don't have to learn everything. You find out where you fit in. Are you from government? Are you from academia? Are you an end user? Are you from marketing? Are you a lawyer? You find your place, and then you also look at the issues. Are you interested in auction proceeds? Are you interested in new gTLDs? Are you interested in security? And you find what is of interest to you, and you fit in the right place. So I'm looking forward to see some applications for the fellowship program and for the next gen program. I'm not looking forward to seeing any reports of hackers coming from UCC. That's for you and your friend who left. But I really feel, based on the energy that I've gotten from you, that I can look forward to seeing some of you within ICANN being on councils, being on the ICANN board, becoming ICANN staff and so on. So I want to thank you very much for being so attentive to me. Thank you.
Okay, so you have just heard from Mr. Daniels. I do have one question for him. How do we get .Talawa to be registered as a new gTLD?
Well, I'm so happy you asked that question. Guess what? Can somebody take a guess in this 1,200 and estimate how many of those new gTLDs came from the Caribbean? There were 1,200, I just told you, new gTLDs that came from the Caribbean. Guess how many out of that came from the Caribbean? 200? Take out the 2. And what you're left with is the number that came from the Caribbean. Big fat 0. And you know why there were no new gTLDs from the Caribbean? It's your fault. You didn't come to the ICANN meetings.
Yeah,
You didn't tell them that,
your
that
fault.
$185,000 is too much to get a new gTLD. You didn't tell them that you wanted .Talawa and so on. You were not at the meetings. The Caribbean wasn't there. It's not just Jamaica, the entire Caribbean. The Caribbean wasn't there. Our Caribbean business people and our Caribbean end users were not in the discussions to tell them that this thing is too expensive and we're not going to be able to participate. And this is why, big job for you. When you go to that meeting, you need to tell them the foolishness that they did with this gTLD program. How can you make it so expensive? How is the Caribbean going to participate? So the way you get it is by going to an ICANN meeting and ensuring that the structures are such that they allow you to participate to get what you want for your Caribbean.
And finally, now recently there was news that a lot of security threats were perpetrated through IP addresses. Now, how can that be prevented? That's the final question as we wrap up.
Okay, how much time do you have?
Oh,
Because that's
give us the short version, the very, very short version.
the short version is that you need to sit in the ESAC at ICANN, Security and Stability Advisory Committee. You need to engage in ICANN meetings with other security professionals who have been dealing with this issue. You need to organize local events in your country so experts can come down here and have, you know, the sessions where we can drill deep down into that. I came here once and I spoke to law enforcement.
Mhm.
So we had all of the IT people from law enforcement, all of the customs, all of the lawyers, the judges, the police, all of the IT managers were there. And we spoke to them. I had my top security experts from ICANN come and we actually spoke to them. Now, that was not like this. It wasn't a Zoom session. It wasn't broadcast, because what we talk about in those meetings stays
Closed
in the
door,
meeting.
yes.
And before you tell somebody about your security problems, you need to trust them. You need to eyeball them. You need to go have, you know, a coffee with them. I was going to say something else. We'll have a coffee or some juice with them. You need to trust the people you're dealing with. So the way you deal with those kinds of problems is you become part of the community, you build relationships, and then you start discussing the issue at a very deep level. ICANN is an incredible place. You meet the top security experts from across the globe coming there to and take advantage of that in Cancun. They will be there, take advantage of it. You can even bring your friend along, the hacker, you know, so she can meet some of them. Confession, I used to be a black hat, and some of the best white hats were previously black hats. Those of you who know what black hats and white hats are, you will understand what I just said. Say no more.